from PRX.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary. It's time for the podcaster who loves making this show so much it makes me want to sing, but I won't because it's my job not to, because I'm trying to, people say, Scoots, when you sing, it throws me off. So I say, don't worry, I'm here to sing. I'm singing in my heart, believe me. Holy cow, can you feel it? Oh, boy. I'm singing and I'm kissing my shoulders because it's time. And if you're new, you may say, what in the hey? And what did he just say, hey, 3 times? Or was that and I say, yep, you're in the right place. It's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. Hey, before we get to the story here, everybody, I just wanted to take a second to pause. I know this is not an easy time for anybody. So if you need some extra help right now, there's links to organizations in the show notes. But it's also important for me, as I've said in the past, as I create a safe place for everyone, to remind you to take a second to say that Black Lives Matter. And right now, we all need to be empowered to take actions to support that fact. So you'll hear me talk about it in the Sleepy Supporter Zone, but use the links in the show notes to support Jacob Blake and Jacob Blake's family, either via the GoFundMe that his mother started or support the Milwaukee Freedom Fund for the people letting their voices be heard, that this isn't okay. This is our community and our world, and I really want to encourage you because things have to change, right? So please take those steps. And here's a couple of ways I'm able to bring this podcast twice a week. Hey everybody, this is Scooter, and I just was wondering if you're one of those people that listens to the podcast on a regular basis. You're a real fan of the show, you rely on it, whatever it is. So is that a question? Yes, you say maybe, or I'm new. Just don't even listen if you're new. Are you in a position to support one of the sponsors or support the podcast? Is that a yes or no? Think about that, yes or no. And if both those are yes, I just ask, would you consider either supporting a sponsor and letting them know about it, letting me know about it, or becoming a patron, paying for a free podcast, becoming a member of our Patreon? You do get some pretty sweet benefits. $10 and up patrons get 2 exclusive intro episodes a month. They get our exclusive Otter Things, Behind the Otter Things series. $20 patrons get a birthday message on their birthday. So some cool things, but it's really about, like I say, well, geez, I get so much value out of the show. I want to give some value back. $5 and up patrons get ad-free episodes. That might be another reason you say, well, I just want to skip all these messages, Scoots. I don't want to hear the jingles. I don't want to hear you talking about this stuff. I say, yeah, sure. That's a great way to do it. It's a pretty good deal for all that new stuff. You get some story-only episodes too. So think about it. If you're in a position to do so, if you're you get enough out of the show, you really like the podcast, or you rely on it, or you listen to like 8 episodes a week or a night. And if you want to, and here's the thing, here's what the best part is, it's just you. Like, I only need 1 out of 100 people who are hearing this to go out there and spread the word about a sponsor or support the show. And the podcast could be there for all those other 99 people. So it's like, oh, geez, if I do that one thing, if I'm that one person out of 100, then I'm helping all these other people too. So think about it. Are you that one person? Thanks so much. You could go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron, become a patron, or you can find out more on our website about our sponsors too, or in the show notes. Thanks. Hey, everybody, it's time for the Sleepy Supporter Zone. The one part of the podcast I need you to hear. It's where I pop my peas, if you please, because it's how I bring you the show with ease. And that's the listeners who supported the sponsors. Let them know about it. Let me know about it. And I want to thank Claire, because Claire got a Helix mattress, a brand new Helix mattress, and then did an Instagram story of it getting set up with, what do you call that, time-lapse photography. And it was amazing. And Helix has been supporting the show for the entire year, all of 2020. And you know what 2020 has been like, and Helix has been there with the podcast. And you deserve a new mattress, like I talk about in the spots for Helix. So please check them out. And when you do, when you take the quiz, let me know what mattress you got paired with. Did you get the Luxe Dusk, or did you like Midnight? Which one? And support Helix. Let me know about it. Let them know about it, so I can thank you like I did Claire here on the Sleepy Supporter Zone. Now, the second part of Sleepy Supporter Zone is you getting the support you need for a couple different things. And right now, this is pretty important. If you need extra help right now, you're having a tough time, there are links to organizations that can help, right now, that you could reach out to. So I want you to use those links and take those steps. And I want to empower you to do that. But this goes into also what I support, too, and that's the Black members of our community. We really need to change. So just take a breath and try to find a place where you could lead with compassion and kindness and care. And for me right now, that means supporting Jacob Blake and everyone letting their voices be heard. And so I'm going to have links to Jacob Blake's official GoFundMe and to the Milwaukee Freedom Fund in the show notes. Those are two organizations I'm supporting right now, and you should think about supporting it. And otherwise, use the links in the show notes. Just take the first steps of making our world and our society a better place. I just want to encourage you to do something right now. I want to empower you. And that is the end of the Sleepy Supporter Zone, which is now over. Oh, Mystery Bard. A lot of people help out on the show. Who are they?
Posty poster son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes too. Carl W. the legend. Also edits episodes. Kenny, Scotty, and Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the mystery bar. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. We're raising money for the Water Wheel Foundation, and Scooter might get a perm.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. Remember to subscribe to the podcast in your podcast app of choice. That way you get it automatically. I know some people just do or follow it, whatever your app allows. Doesn't cost anything, and it just means you might get your notifications. And then you could share also out of your podcast app if you want to let people know about the podcast. When you're listening to it, share. Spotify lets you share right into your Instagram stories, which is cool. Thanks so much. Let's get on with the show. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it the bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature or routine, schedule, whatever it is. So it could be things on your mind you're thinking about from the past, present, or future. You know, those things that just pop in your head at inconvenient times. How about this? I just thought of this, because you know what pop and lock is? That's a style. I guess I don't know if it's a dance move or a dance style. Because you could use, it can't just be, it's more than just a move, because you can, it's a, I almost had the right word, which I'm sure it's a very simple technique. I think it's a technique. But you say, well, what if, you say, what's pop and lock? And I say, well, I don't exactly. They say it's not the robot. You know it when you see it. But what I was really going to say is thoughts just pop in your head. What if this is another technique. Take a technique and build a technique with it. Because sometimes when I'm trying to go to bed, thoughts just pop in my head. And I was just thinking, what if we made those thoughts pop and lock, or do any sort of dance moves you find entertaining but difficult to do on your own? like pop and lock, break dance. It could be anything. But so you picture that in your mind. You say, oh boy, spilling milk on yourself when you had a suit on or something. You say, okay, that's not a memory I need to think about. I'm going to bed. But you say, okay, well, if the part of my brain, the representative image of that, the person, not the part, not the memory, you could picture yourself doing that. It'd be pretty cool. There's another technique we just found. If you do spill something on yourself, just start to dance right after it. Like in a way you say, well, I just spilled something. That's what I do when I spill something on myself. I dance. It's a dance of acceptance of my imperfection. Being imperfect makes me want to dance. Some part of my brain said, so do you dance all of the time? And I'd say, well, I'd strive to, like, honestly, within me. But I was going to say, what if the part of me that popped that memory into my brain, not necessarily the memory of me spilling milk on myself when I'm wearing a suit. Actually, the last time, I'll get back to it, but the last time I was in a suit, I was at a family function, and then after the family function, this is about 18 months, I don't know, it was 2019. After the family function, and I'm pretty sure this is what happened. There's a buffet, with baked ziti was one of the things in the buffet. And it's like I didn't notice this till it was really embarrassing. So at some point, one of three things happened. While I was eating some baked ziti, it dropped into my lap. And then maybe I ground it into my my lap area, if you know what I'm saying. It was still clearly baked ziti. So that's one of the things that could happen. But I don't think that happened because I don't eat, if there's a buffet with baked ziti, I don't think I would eat enough. Like, I'm usually not eating a lot of baked ziti. If you're new, don't worry, I'll get back to you. This is an early tangent. You're in for a treat. But so I don't think that happened. So the other two things that could happen is, one, I walked, just like Icarus, some reason my lower extremities bumped up against some ziti, and they say, if you can't laugh at that, what can you laugh at? So that's the other possibility. But the third thing is what I think really happened is I gave a hug. I knew one of the people that was running the buffet. And so I gave her a hug. I said, holy cow, can you take a break? And so maybe there was ziti on their apron. And it got onto my lap area. Now, after that, which even if it was a hug, it was when I was getting ready to leave, but not when I left. So I probably still saw 12 to 20 members of my family and said goodbye to them with a groin full of ziti. Also, that'll be a book or an album I'll put out one day. I don't know, a lap full of ziti. You're right. Let's just go, let's leave it subtextual. You're right. They're just two different, you're right. A lap full of ziti. I think David Sedaris already wrote that. That was probably so that's probably out. I got to do a groin full of ziti. And then we had to go, so we left this buffet. Then we went to a Walgreens to pick something up. Then we went to an Aldi, an Aldi's or Aldi, so however you say that, to pick something up. We went from buffet, and then we still had to go again for a coffee, and we had to bring something to the coffee. So we went to Aldi's to get that. And at some point when I was in the Aldi's, either my brother said it to me or I noticed that I had a groin or a lap full of ziti. Covered, not just is that ziti or is that, it was there was pieces of ziti and ricotta, it didn't look embarrassing. It looked like I still had, it was there was some sort of, what's that called? Magnet. I had ziti magnetism. It gets even better, I guess. You say, oh boy, you got a magnetic thing going there with your ziti. So if I would have noticed that, at the time I just said, oh, well, that kind of stinks because I only wear a suit once every 3 years. And I wasn't planning on cleaning the suit until 3 years from now. So now I'll have to figure, and now that I just realized that my suit is still in my closet with the ZD on it. And so what was that? What was my point there? We got to get that suit cleaned. Because it's the only suit I own, too. Wonder how 18 months of ZD will do in there, if it's really ground in. I don't know if I'll be able to shout it out. Oh, my point was, what if I had pop and locked right there on Aldi's? Just started dancing or doing jazz hands, whatever it is. Dancing knees or, hip, Shakira, doing the Shakira hip thing or something, some pop culture reference that people actually would recognize, which would take that dance move, I'd say. I don't even know because people don't do, like, even the dances I'm kind of aware, like some TikTok dance. That TikTok dance where you put your hand above your head while you drop your knees to your ankles so your butt touches your heels. I'd like to be good at, I should have done that one. That's at the end of one of those TikToks from 2019. So my point is, hey, I'm here, whatever's keeping you awake, thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, any of those things, I'm here to take your mind off of that. I think maybe that tangent may have, holy tangential. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, and superfluous tangents, which we went from a pointless meander to a superfluous tangent. Just then, I'm going to go off topic, clearly, all to take your mind off stuff while you fall asleep. Now, if you're new, a couple things to know. And it's a little late. I'll agree with you there. One, this podcast does not work for everybody, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. But for the people it works for, it takes 2 or 3 tries. So one thing to know is give it 2 or 3 tries. The other thing is that this is a podcast you don't really listen to. It's a podcast you're barely present for, and you don't have to give it very, very much attention. So you say, okay, well, I wasn't even aware, like ideally say, I don't even know what Scoots was talking about. Something about, he was baking ziti, or he invented a dance called the baked ziti. But it was really just I think, or maybe he said if he could invent a dance, he wouldn't invent a dance called the baked ziti because he said, well, I don't know. And then he said, maybe I would, he goes, I don't think I would do a dance just called the ziti. He said, but maybe the ZD, he could do a dance where you're doing a Z and then a D. And so I don't know. That would be what you remember about this podcast in the morning if you're a regular listener. Now, if you're new, just kind of consume that podcast, like see if you could have a looser hold on this podcast. Just barely pay attention to me. So that's one thing to know. The second thing to know is that... what is the second thing? This is a podcast. Podcast. Oh, it's not really here to put you to sleep either. I'm here to keep you company as you drift off. And I give you plenty of time to drift off. The reason the shows are about an hour is so you could drift off at your leisure. There's no pressure to fall asleep. I'm going to be here for about an hour. And if you can't sleep, I'll be here to the very end. I'll be here telling you a bedtime story, whether you're awake or asleep. So it's a podcast you don't need to listen to. It doesn't really put you to sleep, just keeps you company. Ideally, I become your bore bae, your bore friend, your bore sib, your bore bestie, your bore cuz. So those are things you need to know. The other thing is, for new listeners, is the structure of the show can throw people off. Show starts off with a greeting. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends beyond the binary. So you know you're seen and welcome here. That's how I just start to invite you into the safe place that I'm trying in an imperfect way to create. Then there's business. That's how we're able to bring you a podcast twice a week on a regular basis is the sponsors and the people that support the sponsors. And that's like a few minutes. Then there's an intro. The intro is around 12 to 20 minutes long, and it's me rambling, going off topic as you saw. with two goals. One, a couple goals. One, to introduce new people to the podcast and give you a general idea of what to expect, which is nonsense and tangents. Two is to put you to sleep, really, or to try to help you unwind if you become a regular listener, because regular listeners, is like 2% of regular listeners skip ahead to 20 minutes and start the show there. So everyone else starts the show and listens kind of through, but people listen through in a different way. Some people start playing it before they get into bed as they start to unwind or lightly read or doodle or do any yarn or what is that other stuff called? Thread-based activities. Maybe maybe you're modeling clay. Maybe maybe you're modeling clay like I am. That's my TikTok outfit. I say, oh boy, I'm modeling clay. I'm wearing it as a clay-based outfit. I think if I was I don't know if terracotta is actually a clay, but that seems very breathable. So that would probably be the one I'd be most interested in if I have a choice. But I guess maybe some softer clay on the inside. Though, of course, I'll have a lap full of ricotta, so that helps too. So the intro, so some listeners fall asleep during the intro, but a lot of listeners are either getting ready for bed or they're getting in bed, and I'm easing you into bedtime. So for the regular listener, what up, regular listeners? You're not regular to me. Believe me, you're super special. So I get to come up with another term for that. But you listen on a regular basis. That's what I meant. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call you a regular listener. You know what I meant. My boorbays, my boor cousins, my boor sibs, my boor besties, my boorbris. Those of you that dance the ZD and the ZD with me, so you know what I was talking about. I don't. But so it eases everybody into bedtime, takes your mind off of stuff, so you could kind of fall asleep and get some distance from the day. So that's what the intro does. And some new listeners say, why does it go on and on and on? Or why don't you get to the point? Or are you just talking about business or something? I say, no, I'm talking about something, but with a whole lot of nothing. And using ZD as a metaphor, you say, okay, ZD's the thick, round ones, right? Maybe penne, like a ziti is like a giant penne. Am I on the right track? And some of the, if you baked ziti, is it like a tomato sauce with ricotta cheese? Maybe I'm wrong. And some people could say, like, if you came from a place where you say, like, if you were paying for the buffet and you weren't familiar with ziti, and let's just say you were paying, instead of paying, like you say, well, a dish is each $20, and you weren't paying by pound. You say, well, at our buffet, we do charge by the cubic foot. And you say, well, I don't want ziti because it's a whole lot of nothing. And you say, well, no, it's not. It's ricotta, it's pasta, it's tomato sauce. Very popular because it's fits a lot of different eating types, and we use a non-dairy ricotta here. Gluten-free pasta. So, you see, but it's like, if I'm paying by the cubic foot, I want something denser. Can you crush the ziti down? You see, aren't you in the middle of an intro for a sleep podcast? I say, you're right. Thank you. Thanks. You're worth your weight in cubic feet, if you don't mind me saying. Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about? That's great. Anyway, just leave the ziti. I'll have one crushed and one non-crushed ziti, please. Oh, you put it in my lap. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, that was a part of my brain. So just see how it goes. See how the intro goes. So other things you need to know is I make this show because I've been there and I know how it feels, tossing and turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep. So I just want to help you get a good night's sleep because you deserve a good night's sleep. The world and your world and our world will be a better place if you get the sleep you need. So that's why I make the show, is so you can get some rest. And now the podcast does not work for everybody. So just kind of see how it goes. It's free to listen to, so give it a couple tries and see how it goes. And I hope it helps you. I really appreciate you coming by and checking this podcast out. I work very hard. Oh, what else? The structure of the show. Sorry. After the intro is business. Some part of my brain just told me. Then it'll be our ongoing episodically modular series, Otter Things, and then some thank yous at the end. So that's why I wanted to just tell you that. So thank you so much for checking the show out. I work very hard. I yearn and I strive. I really want to help you fall asleep. And thanks again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we're able to bring you this podcast twice a week. All right, parents, it's time to talk about KiwiCo, because KiwiCo takes education, hands-on projects, and makes learning at home fun. My daughter and I have been working on rope coil baskets, which I never thought, I've seen rope coil baskets before, a basket made of rope. I said, I thought that was just something you saw in the store. We're going to make that together. Here's the key thing. If you're listening and you have kids in your life, it comes with every single thing you need to put it together. More than enough stuff. It comes with step-by-step instructions, links to videos that go through the process. It comes with a page with inspiration. So things you say, well, my kid wants to do even more, or we want to take this project to the next level. And it has the history of basket making. So it comes, I don't know, it covers all the bases. And I got to tell you, right now is the time to support KiwiCo. It's the fall, and if you want the kid in your life, or, you know, a kid that's important to you that you're not with right now, you want them to FaceTime you and show you, think about that, your grandchild or your niece or nephew, showing you a project like rope coil baskets or terrazzo organizers that they made on their own, and they learned something, not just about the history of what they're working on and the steps it takes to make it, but they learned something about themselves. That's the most important part. And you'll be able to see it in their eyes and their face, whether you're there like I am with my daughter, you know, as her assistant, working with her side by side, having some fun, or you're on a FaceTime or a Zoom and they're letting you know about it. So they can get super cool hands-on science in our projects delivered to their door every month. And who doesn't love that? I mean, my daughter's always looking, when's the KiwiCo subscription coming? And as a parent, I can tell you, it's not easy to find creative, stimulating new ways to challenge your child, to keep them busy. The KiwiCo crates come with everything you need. There's different crates for kids of all ages, so there's something for every kid on your list. And now is the time to sign up. Don't wait, because I really want to make sure we have a long relationship with KiwiCo, especially with this new normal school year. KiwiCo is redefining play with hands-on projects that build confidence, creativity, and critical thinking skills. There's something for every kid or kid at heart at KiwiCo. And I don't know what, I think every listener should be signing up for this, because you can get your first month free on select crates at kiwico.com/sleep. So I don't know if you heard me clearly, because I should get an email from KiwiCo in the next couple of days saying we sold out of every crate, Scoots. You could get your first month free on select crates at kiwico.com/sleep. That's kiwico.com/sleep. Oh, Mr. Bard, you got a song to remember that?
KiwiCo, a KiwiCo sleep is the promo code for KiwiCo. KiwiCo, a KiwiCo sleep is the promo code for KiwiCo.
Thanks, Mr. Bard. Sign up and let me know about it. Let me know which crate you signed up for, what project you worked on. Thanks, KiwiCo. All right, hey, everybody, Scoots. I'm going to turn things right over to Emma Otter, and this archived audio I was able to get. Hey, everybody, this is Emma Otter here. I'm here to tell you a tale, and I want you to know right up front that all will be well. So if you're thinking or wondering about that, I just want you to know that right up front. But this is a tale about a place where I live, a town in a swamp. And if you've never heard any of this story before, don't worry. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know right now to get you caught up and in the right place, because you are in the right place right now. And you're in the right pause with my pause here. And I'll have extra pause this year as Emma Otter. So I'm an otter. I'm an otter, and I live in a place, a swamp, and part of a greater swamp area. And I'm a member of a family. I live with my mother, my father, my youngest sibling, and then my older brother, Tefe. And my brother, Tefe, my parents and my youngest sibling really aren't super important, just like, they're important, but not in this story that I'm telling you. My brother, Tefe, does play a role. And Tefe's the kind of otter you see that looks like he just dove into silky water, and came out ready to do a gum commercial or something. He's the smoothest otter in town. If there was a place where otters performed or were viewed, that's just Tefe. It really gets on my nerves, but what can you do? He's my older brother. And he knows it, though. He knows he shines. So that's my house. I have quite a few friends. Of course, a close best friend that knows who they are, as well as a variety of other really close friends. And they know, in their hearts that they're my best friend, but that I have other close friends, too. So once upon a time, I had three close friends that I'm mentioning in no particular order: Willow, Elijah, and Vaughn. Those are my three friends. And since then, I've made a new friend named Billy. But before we met Billy, it was just Willow, Elijah, and Vaughn and I. LJ and V, they go by. Willow just goes by Willow. I don't know why, she doesn't go by Willow or O. But maybe she will start going by that. But so we used to play a role-playing game called Bards and Big Bunnies. We were also into dressing up in as characters and performing and stuff like that. And we're in middle school. Tefe's in high school. And yeah, Bards and Big Bunnies is a game, like a role-playing game about the big things in life, music and bards from the olden days, and big bunnies who would come and try to take your town's resources, and the bards that would protect the town with the power of song, along with other adventurers. And one night we were playing Bards and Big Bunnies. We finished the game. But on the way home, Willow took a road less taken on her water bike, and we thought she took a road less taken where she moved away to the big city, River Bottom, Henson Town, someplace like that, recorded an album, started her musical career, which, other people have in middle school, but we didn't know about it. And also the first album that arrived in our town right after Willow left, which was very efficient, was about goofing on our town. Most of the songs were making fun of our town. And we, something wasn't right there. Willow would have told us, how could you record an album and put it out in just a few days? Even Willow, while she would goof on us, she wouldn't goof on us. And she was big into parody music, so we just thought it was strange, and the whole thing, we didn't buy it. At the same time, right after it happened, we didn't even buy it. So we were looking for Willow on the path, less taken, Darkenwood, and all those places. And that's where we met Billy. Now, Billy was a duck-billed beaver who had come from a place beyond the swamp. Now, okay, so we live in a swamp, surrounded on three sides by swamp, which to some of you might not understand is like a variety of, swamp's a general term. There's some forest, there's some swamp, there's some muck, and that goes on and on and on, a greater swamp area. On one side, though, it's bisected by a road, and that's the place beyond the swamp. Technically, I think it's a swamp, but we don't go there. But there's a road. Mysterious vehicles travel on the road. And we're not supposed to go on the road because there's vehicles that go by. And then beyond that is like an old visitor center and bog walk that we're not supposed to go to. And we were looking, we said, well, did Willow go over near there or something? And that's when we found Billy, the duck-billed beaver. Turned out Billy was lost, or had left the place beyond the swamp, the visitor center. And Billy also had powers, magical powers of song. Billy could sing and make you, like, she could sing a song like Freeze Frame, and you would freeze. She might sing a song like Go to Sleep, you would instantly go to sleep. So just like in the game Bards and Big Bunnies, Billy somehow had powers through song, either superpowers or magical powers. And then we've been working with Billy trying to find Willow, but also LJ and Vaughn. LJ in particular said, well, aren't we supposed to just find Willow? Why are we helping this kid we don't even know, duck-billed beaver, which is odd anyway. And why are we getting caught up in this? So that's been an ongoing tension with all of us. We also recently discovered that we could use our tuning forks. If we follow our tuning forks, like for a sympathetic vibration, we thought we could find. Because we've figured out that Willow had kind of gone to a place. We'd used Billy's powers to get a hold of Willow and discover that Willow is in a place called the Size Down, which is a bit like in the Southern Swamp trilogy, we think, some sort of other parallel universe or something. And we're trying to find our way there using our tuning forks, which have a sympathetic vibration. We also have an electromagnetic tuning fork we made, 2 of them. But we followed those and we didn't find Billy. We didn't find Willow. We found out Billy was controlling them. And then Billy and Elijah had a big, strong disagreement. And Billy sang the song Impulsive, and Elijah ran away. Then we were upset with Billy, and we used strong words with Billy, and Billy ran away. So that's what's going on with us. But this part of the story is more about, so our town has the greater, like our local swamp authority. Our community resources are managed by our community resource manager, Bull, Leon the Frog. And he's really a all-around great frog, really cares about the community, a little bit of a curmudgeon. He discovered that the place beyond the swamp, something's going on there. And we'll get it more into that tonight. I've discovered more. But he said he's had the same reaction at first. Willow moved away. And somehow he hasn't 100% tied Willow to the place beyond the swamp, the visitor center, and below it is a whole complex where they're up to stuff. Willow's mom, Willow will live with her mom and her sister, Frances, and her sister Dari. Frances is a bespoke, she works at a store, but one day she hopes to have her own bespoke wind chime business. She was communicating with Willow via wind chime to the place beyond the swamp. And she knew Willow was, but everybody doubted her. They said, no. Willow recorded an album and moved away. But now, of course, she's working with Bull because they said, oh, wait, you're right. You were right all along, Frances. Something's going on with Willow. Let's find out. Now, Dari, my Willow's sister, and my brother Tefe are working together as well. Now, Tefe, who knows what Tefe's motivations are? Probably, if there's a mirror involved, Tefe's in. But Dari is, of course, looking for her sister. And at first she said, well, something's odd. She went to her dad's house in River Bottom with Tefe, and she discovered that Willow wasn't at her dad's house. Her dad's J-U-R-K. And then she came out to the car, which was our Uncle Emmett's vehicle, but Tefe was K-A-S-S-I-N-G-ing Dari's now at that time, former best friend, Babs. Then they drove home. Then Babs went for a walk. Then Babs was also there. Said, where'd Babs go? She just went for a walk. Now Did she go and record an album somewhere? And since then, Dari has been like, okay, something's going on. And then they discovered that Babs did encounter some sort of big bunny, or some big bunny that sings lullabies and makes sounds. So that's kind of where we left off. And before I get to the story here, here's our most famous performer, actor, sometimes a singer, an otter, and an all-around gentleman, Mr. Antonio Banderas. Thank you, Emma. Ladies is the gentlemen, is the boys, is the girls, the friends beyond the binary. Don't worry. All will be well. Because it's time for Otter. Things splish, splash. Thanks, Antonio. So that's Antonio. And Antonio and I, we're going to play a plinkety-plunk. So if you want to wait around, we'll play that later. So when we last left off, what I didn't tell you was, so we had our community resource fair, which is a big fair in our town, big deal. And while me and my friends were looking into stuff, Dari and Tefe were riding the Ferris wheel, and they were discussing what they didn't know. They only knew what Dari and Tefe knew. They didn't know what we knew, or even what Emma or what Francis or Bull knew. But they did know that Babs had encountered some sort of a giant bunny, maybe with goose feathers. And there was carrots, and it was someplace on the edge of the swamp. So they were riding in the Ferris wheel, going up, and then, for a while, Tefe was relaxed. Dari was more trying to be focused on, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to solve this? What do you think? You think of my sister? She also didn't know that all will be well at the time. You never know that. Unless you have a part of you that constantly reminds you, don't worry, all's going to be well. You're going to be okay. But they didn't have me there with them saying that like you do. That's everything's going to be well. So they were talking, and at the same time, Tefe likes to use, is used to using the Ferris wheel for a couple activities, KASSING, and hand-holding, arm-arounding, foot playing, or goober shooting at other kids or me and my friends from the Ferris wheel. Also talking of so the Tefe was distracted at look at that down there. There's my parents, blah blah blah. They know everything, so Tefe was also distracted, and they were talking about value systems and the Tefe said, well, why do we live in, Tefe is a little bit of a contrarian to the way we live, community-based living, not 100% community-based. We have our own individual home, it's a nuanced system. And maybe that's it. It's a little bit too much nuance for Tefe. But Tefe said, why don't we have a system where, why can't I get kind of thing? But Dari wasn't even listening. Tefe thought Tefe was making all these brilliant points about production and shining, and I don't know. Individualism. That's what I think they call it, bootstrapping. And then Dari said, what? But Dari didn't realize that while Tefe, now I don't know if this was one of Tefe's techniques, he also had to put his arm around Dari. And Dari said, well, I just think, and she said, what do you, and then she said, well, this isn't bad. It's kind of comforting. It's reminding me all will be well. Because it was just, when you're on a thing, you're just putting your arm up anyway. So she said, okay, well, let's just roll with this. And then she said, so you're going to, then she was kind of listening. She said, so you're going to rebel against your parents and the values of our society. She goes, isn't that what people do when they run away to become stars? Are you going to become a star, Tefe? Is that what you want? Tefe said, I don't know if I want to become a star. I just want people to recognize that I am a star. He goes, you're a star too, Dari. Like, you just don't see it. This kind of stuff. Stuff that teens talk about. And, some teens discover, I'd like to move to River Bottom and see, like, a R&B band. That band was not about sharing community. Maybe they were, though, about sharing community resources. Or back when my Uncle Emmett lived, that was before we switched over to community resources. And there was, like, there was a lot of people that had control over more of the resources than everybody else. But it was a gradual change anyway. It wasn't a big upheaval, but that's what teens like sometimes. And then Tefe said, well, what are we going to do? And Dari said, we got to go back. We should retrace our steps again. We should go out a little bit further than where we were last time. And we should look for carrots, like one of our clues is carrots. So we need it. And then Tefe said, wait a second, like, I remember this one time, a couple of my buddies and I, we had too many pop rocks or whatever. And we went out and we found this patch of wild carrots. I think they're wild carrots. And we were, like playing, like pretending we were dashing, like Bards and Big Monies, basically. This was kid stuff. I'm not a kid anymore, Dari. Don't worry about it. And Tefe kissed Tefe's bicep. But she said, wait a second, so there's giant carrots? I don't know if there is a giant carrot, but it could be in the carrot family. You're saying there's a giant swamp carrot. Where? And he said, well, not that far from where we were. And she goes, well, how long ago was that? And he goes, well, middle school, I guess. No, grammar school. And she goes, so a few years ago. Let's go. So they got off of the thing. Now, they didn't notice that some of the other kids were watching them and kind of in scorn a little bit. But they headed out right then. Out into the edge of the swamp, almost to the place beyond the swamp. And it does affect where you choose to live. Like now, Willow's family does live really far out because the road, there's just random vehicles and they're masked in mystery. So you don't want to be too close because you don't know when. They don't come through very often, but they make a lot of noise. And it's just these giant vehicles. And you don't want to have like a way to make sure your kids, you see, like the closer you live to the place beyond the swamp, the more your kids are going to think, Like unless you have a mom like Frances, like she grew up and raised two grounded daughters that said, okay, well, we just won't go there. You just don't go there. Here's some sensible reasons why not. So it affects, like a lot of people choose to kind of have some distance and have some trees and other things between them and the road and the place beyond the swamp. So we did get out there and, that's where, like, I tried to walk home from there, but then Tefe said, don't walk home. And that's when we got to the car and Babs was gone. So we parked there and then we started walking. And it was a long walk. And then Tefe was talking the same night. Now, this time, Dari was actually listening because they weren't on the Ferris wheel. And he was kind of saying, like, what if the bunnies were right? Like, what if the bunnies and Bards and Big Bunnies, like the Bards, maybe they're better off, would be better off. And then the whole tropey thing of, like, well, maybe we need the Big Bunnies to keep us working, if there wasn't anybody to take our resources, would we make our resources? And finally, Dari had enough, and she said, "Tefe, I feel like you're operating from an ego first position." And and he said, are you saying I'm selfish? And she said, well, you seem to be self-interested, and we all are. But you seem to be fixated on justifying it instead of accepting it as part of being, part of your consciousness. And she said, I think you need to take a hard look at it. You may even have a little bit, you're a narcissist, by the way, too. And Tefe said, what? You like, she said, it's best we just don't talk. Let's just look for these carrots. But then it took forever, and then there was more tension because Dari said, are you making us take longer? Do you even remember where the carrots were? Do you remember any landmarks? And then Tefe said, I do remember a landmark. Because they headed, so if you headed straight, so I'll give you just a little bit of a map in your mind. A simple one. So the visitor center is, you could barely see it. Picture a road, like an aqueduct type road, rising up out of the swamp, maybe 10 feet, on a slant of ground. And beyond it is a visitor center, low-lying and dilapidated. And now not that far from the visitor center is a tunnel that goes underneath, but it's it has a gate and stuff like that. So if you were to head towards the tunnel and then go left, and you go left for a while, eventually some more trees start to come up and they separate. So you had trees on the left and then the road on the right. And then Tefe said, I remember you could see like a pole sticking up on the road because we were daring one another to climb up there and do it. And Dari said, did you? And Tefe said, well, I did the daring. I didn't do the doing. And then she said, okay, well, then what? And then Tefe said, well, then we go left into these, into all these trees. And eventually they started to see, now, again, I'm not a biologist or anything or an expert, so I don't know, but you sure see carrot butts or whatever you call them, carrot stalks, I guess maybe they're called carrot greens, sticking up out of there. And they started looking, but they were giant. And she said, you played with these? And they're bigger than us now. And Tefe said, yeah, these are huge. No. When we were kids, they were as big as our arms, but these must be the same ones. And Dari said, well, then it's not a fruit or a vegetable. It's it's part of the plant, the stem or something. So maybe they're not carrots. But she dove down and she said, it feels like a texture of a carrot, though. It's interesting. And Tefe said, well, now what? And Dari said, well, we keep looking around. And they kept looking around. And then eventually they found one that was the top was nibbled off. And then she said, look over there. That one doesn't have any greens, but it's still sticking above the water. So it was about 3 feet above the water. And as they got closer to it, they saw that it went down, so it was hollowed out. It was like a giant carrot, but more of some sort of, it technically wasn't a root vegetable or something because it had been growing for years there. But I mean, I don't know anything. But it had been hollowed out and it was so long that it went down the swamp, down the water. It was above the water line and it was below the water line. And at first they said, that's cool. I wonder what ate that. And then they started to look around and it wasn't long before around that area they found scraping against the other giant carrots, what could only be described as goo or goop, feathers and bunny fur, which they had seen in other places. And also bunny, marks, the bunny had tried, some giant bunny had basically tried to eat some of the other carrots, but given up. And then Dari said, Tefe, eat one of those carrots. And Tefe said, well, what if the carrot's not full of nutrients? What if it doesn't taste good? And she said, just try to eat it. Trust me. She goes, just try. So Tefe tried to take a bite of the carrot, and he said it tasted a bit like sawdust mixed with something. He said it was gross, but not like he said, it doesn't taste like much. And she goes, do you think it's carrot? And he goes, well, it's definitely, he goes, it's mealy, more mealy than a carrot. Dari kind of circled the area, and Tefe said, what are you doing? And Dari said, I think we should look at this hole. And Tefe said, no, I don't think so. And Dari said, lower me down, like in the hole, through the carrots. And Tefe said, no. Like, what if, like, we don't know how far down it goes? And Dari said, like, who cares? Like, just lower me down. Like, you got long arms. I thought you were an otter. I thought, you're a long otter. You're very, and he said, okay. So he lowered Dari down, like, just like a giant tube, but basically she was going in. And actually, once she got in there, she was like, oh, wait, I can push my arms and my legs against the side and kind of climb down. And it is kind of mealy, but sturdy. And she climbed down, and she was climbing head first because she wanted to be able to see. Now, she'd also brought a lantern, of course. So she got down there, and she said, she goes, it's like a cave or something. And then Tefe said, what? Shave what? And then she dropped in, and then Tefe kind of looked in there, and she yelled, just wait for me. Just wait up there for me. And he heard that because she was already at the bottom. And she dropped in, and it was basically not dry ground, but muck-like ground. And it was like a pocket of below the swamp of. Now, I would say that it was probably some sort of like, I guess, like I did talk to a scientist about this, that whatever these root vegetables were, this was some sort of limestone. And this vegetable secreted something that enabled it to penetrate the limestone. That's why the swamp wasn't like, that's why it was sturdy above her. And then Dari just started going and walking, and it wasn't far. Like there was only one direction, and there was clearly big bunny tracks. And she said the big bunny, like it was clear, it was higher ceilings, but that it was like on the roof and the floor, like it was like the bunny had to like crawl to get through there because there's bunny fur and feathers on the floor and the walls. And she said, well, that's odd. And she kept going for a while. And then eventually she thought she heard some singing, and she saw a light ahead. So she turned down her lantern, and she listened, and she was like, she started to kind of recount her steps and kind of get a direction. And because she had gone a long way, she said, wait a second, this has got to be, I may be beyond the swamp. I may have gone under the road even. And she did kind of realize that it was sloped downward. So as each possible, like each thing, she was like going deeper and deeper, but a slow slope. And eventually she got closer, and she could swear she heard some singing. So she was really quiet. And then she eventually went into this area that opened up, and there was a bigger chamber. And then beyond it was like what looked like concrete, so it was like this bigger chamber, and the cave started to go into something that looked like concrete walls. But that was also covered with muck and stuff like that. And then she started to go down this like spiraling thing, and that's where the singing was coming from, a little bit below. And she said, wait a second, there's something ominous about this spiraling even lower, in the combination of a cave and then concrete and then muck. Something feels a bit off. But then she got like a little bit lower, and then she realized that there was like, it went lower further, but there was also another chamber off of like almost like you went down a few floors. And she said that's where the singing's coming from. So she started to crawl. And remember, all will be well. Don't worry. This was actually soothing singing, like a bit like a lullaby or someone humming while they were working or something like that. And so she was crawling and trying to get closer and closer. And then she went into this room and she started to look, and it was like a smaller, I don't know if you've ever seen when people celebrate the holiday season or some other season, or maybe they just decorate their house with like a miniature, or they have a train set, like a miniature town. She started to see that in she went into this room and the streets, like it was all like made of, well, she wasn't sure if it was made of mud or some sort of like sandy cement, but it was like this dark mud, sand, but not, it was hard. She touched it version of their town, like a 1/8 or 1/20th version of the town. And it stretched across this chamber, and big enough that she could almost like put her head in the buildings. So not like a different size than, she said, wait a second, like I could almost get into one of these buildings, just barely. And then she started to notice different like figures, but she still heard the singing, and this was in another room. So she kept going. And it was actually like she went to the edge of our town, and then at the edge of that town was a wall, but again, like painted at the wall was like what looked like the road, and it was being like drawn in a very crude way with mud and other things. And then the tunnel that went to the place beyond the swamp, and that's where the kind of sound was coming from. And then she tried to crawl in the tunnel, and she could swear, if you'd ask her, that she could see in the tunnel. She said she saw some mobiles in some giant cribs. But right as she thought she saw a giant crib, she slipped and she went splat. And then she heard something stop. Whatever was singing stopped singing. And then she heard a thump and everything shaked. And then she was like, that must be the big bunny. Thump. And then she saw it come out into the hall. Like she was in a hall. The bunny had come out of the room with possibly giant mobiles and whatever. And the bunny saw her and thump. And Dari ran. And then she ran into town. And she was now Dari, holy intelligence. Dari took her lantern and turned it on, and then threw it in one of the bigger rooms, like one of the bigger things in town. And then she hid in one of the buildings, and so the bunny thumped, paused where she was hiding. But then thumped over to where the light was just barely shining out, because Dari had thrown it all the way in the back of one of these model-type buildings of our town. And when the bunny got over there, Dari bolted right out of the thing and started running back. And again, she felt the bunny coming. First, she got pretty far. Then she heard the bunny chasing. But she said, okay, well, the bunny's going to have to go pretty slow in this last, chamber. So she thought she was home free. And then she was yelling, Tefe, throw a rope, reach down. Now, meanwhile, Tefe was, totally chilling and actually, pensive, a little bit pensive. If you saw Tefe, but Tefe was looking, it was a full moon. Tefe was looking at Tefe's reflection in the water. Kind of talk. Do you really think I am? Am I caught up with myself? Is that all I care about? Back and forth type thing. And Dari's like yelling, Tefe, Tefe, reach down for me. Now she got up there and then she realized that like she had underestimated how many carrots or whatever carrot type things were sticking down through the limestone roof so she was like, which one? She was having trouble. And then she heard the bunny getting closer and closer. And then she's like, Tefe, Tefe, throw down the rope or something, your tail. And Tefe said, and then Tefe thought Tefe heard something. And then just in time, Tefe did hold on to the edge of the carrot and lower down. And then Dari saw Tefe's tail and then she grabbed it. And then Tefe climbed out with Dari. And then they still bolted. They ran out of the swamp, jumped in, and they drove all the way back to my house, actually. And then they went downstairs in my house, and they said, "Wait a second, let's get cleaned up." And then Tefe was like, "I can't believe my sister's having sleepovers, because they had the fort set up that Billy had been staying at." And meanwhile, I was in my bed asleep. This was after Billy had run away, so I was already in bed. And because they had to go, time had actually passed in a different way for them because but so Dari was like, holy cow, that was she goes, there is a big bunny. I think it has but it has goose heads. She goes, there's I think it's I don't know. And Tefe said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, it's just, let's snuggle for a little while. And let's just hug each other. And so they had a long hug. And she said, let's, you sleep on the couch there. I'm going to sleep in this tent. And then, we'll talk about things in the morning. So they did that. And then, but Dari woke up, early. Now, Tefe's an easy sleeper, like everything else. But Dari woke up, and then eventually she woke Tefe up, and she said, okay. I've been thinking about it for most of the night. And Dari said, okay, here's what I think, Tefe. And Tefe said, okay. She goes, so there's some sort of giant bunny goose lives down there. And it has something to do with Babs or Will. And he goes, okay. And she goes, and that might have been the big bunny my mom saw. And he goes, well, should we tell anybody about it? She goes, no, we should deal with it. No one's going to believe us. And even if they did, she goes, it's just, she goes, it's strange. This is the oddest thing we'll ever encounter. And he said, do you mind if I ask, what do you think it's doing? And she goes, remember that book we had to read? She goes, she goes, it was singing lullabies. And I think I saw a crib. She goes, I think it's some sort of adult juvenile bunny goose. And maybe it's playing, maybe it thinks Willow and Babs are action figures. This is the only thing I can think of because she goes, they had this whole giant version of our town. And it just doesn't make any sense. And he goes, well, so what should we do? And she goes, well, we should, she goes, it takes a carrot to catch a carrot. She goes, we got to find this bunny, get it away from there, and see if Willow and Babs are there, and find out who's in charge of this adult juvenile bunny. That's what I'm guessing, but I'm not sure. She goes, so we got to, lure it away, basically. And he goes, how are we going to do that? And she goes, well, carrots, real carrots, though. She goes, so we got to go gather we got to get all the carrots we can, as many carrots as we can. Would goose chase a goose and get a bunny with carrots? And Tefe said, okay, let's do it. So then they got up and they started driving around town, and they went to all, the few shops we have in town, bought all the carrots in the entire store. And they said, you going to leave any carrots for anybody else? They said, no. And they said, what are you making? They said, carrot miso soup, giant, and they said, okay. And then they said, well, anybody else had a carrot? So they bought an entire truckload of carrots, bushels and bushels of carrots. But then as they were filling the truck with the last bushels of carrots, they just noticed people were laughing, particularly at Dari, but at both of them. They said, what are you laughing at? Tefe said, because Tefe doesn't. And they said, oh, well, I guess Babs' street team, we're just guessing if it's going to be anything like. So then they went down and they saw a bunch of kids that Tefe knew, the hip crowd or whatever. And they were making chalk art on the walls of buildings of imaginary versions of Babs' album. They said, we heard Babs signed an album, just like your sister. We figured if she was goofing on anybody, it'd be the two of you. And so they had made fake album covers. This wasn't real albums, but they had like Worst Kisser in the World with Tefe crying and Babs singing. Then they had stuff about Dari not being a good friend or being, bringing my friend to the party who didn't get invited. I think that was one of the ones that kind of burned, that, upset Dari the most. And they said, we demand you take that down. And then they said, where do you think they got them? I said, this is really the songs. We're just recreating them. And she said, what do you mean? And one of the kids had, now this is very expensive. It was a portable audio disc player. It had just come out in the past couple of years. And they said, the street team really was here. They it gave us previews of the album. Now these were unmarked previews, so they weren't as advanced as the ones of Willis that had been found. They didn't have any album art. They were just CDs and tapes. And Dari said, give it to me. And she listened, and it was music, and it was a teenager singing. But it was not Babs. It was and Dari said, this is awesome, singing. And I know Babs. Babs doesn't sing like this. But they were singing, those were two of the songs. So it was a real album of someone named Babs. Because she said, I'm Babs, and I'm Babs, and I'm bad, and I'm here to make Tefe sad. Kisses like a dad. And how do you say that? It means he kisses bad, songs and now then the young woman who Dari had taken it from was trying to take it back, and then it got dropped, and it broke, and that was a very expensive thing to buy. So then the community resource officer was supposed to settle and mediate disputes like that. So immediately some of the assistant resource officers showed up, and Dari had said, no. Then there was a disagreement about if Dari was going to have to make amends for being, and she said, it's not my fault though. And then the kids also said Dari and Tefe were the ones that did the art that you weren't supposed to do. So they said, you're going to have to come with us, back to the community resource, office. You're going to have to call your parents, and, we're going to have to do some restorative justice work here. And we're going to have to take a close look at this and work with you. And they said, well, we got stuff to do. We got a truckload full of carrots. And they said, what do you got a truckload full of carrots for? And they said, well, no one's going to bother your carrots. They're your carrots, right? And Tefe said, my mom is going to flip. I have filled my uncle's truck with carrots. She's going to think it's a goof. He said, let me at least tarp it. And they said, fine, tarp your carrots, and then come back to the community resource office. So they had to drive all the way back to the community resource office, and, they were obviously, like, this is inconvenient because we're about to find that it was a little bit embarrassing. Dari was kind of feeling like, geez, I kind of overreacted there. And when they got there, Tefe said, thanks for sticking up for me. And Dari said, what do you mean sticking up for me? He said, well, you got, that song was about that I'm not a good kisser. I can't believe, I thought Babs liked my kissing. And, like, I always thought I was good at it. And Dari said, you practice a lot with your hand or something? And Tefe said, with my pillow. I kiss my pillow. I know it's not ideal, but, you know, it helps with my visualizations. And Dari kind of laughed at that. But she said, I wasn't sticking up for you. I was trying to figure out if it was really Babs on there, which it was not. But everybody in the whole community resource office was listening to this, and they said, oh, so there was you did, because everybody likes Tefe in town. Holy moly, Tefe's popular with the adults, because he knows how to make the adults feel good. Compliments them, you know, says, great job. And they said, well, that's so nice of you to, and they said, what is all the carrots for, Tefe? And Tefe said, well, I'm doing a carrot drive, new thing. It's a carrot drive. You know, I heard about some bunnies outside of town. And everybody's like, oh, we're talking about restoring our hope and justice. Maybe not restorative justice, Tefe. And they said, this must just be another one of your admirers. And Dari just rolled her eyes. And then she said, can I take a nap here while I wait for my mom? Because my mom's got a lot on her plate, by the way. And she kind of curled up. And then Tefe kind of started to nod off and say, well, maybe I'm not so, I'm trying to help Dari here get to the bottom of this Otter thing. So maybe I can rest and not feel as odd about that. Yeah, I have a little bit of self-interest. Maybe I have some misguided ideas. But maybe I can help Dari use these carrots to figure out this big bunny situation. And just remember, for now, all will be well. Good night. I want to thank everybody who became a patron recently. Donna, Jacqueline, and Raquel. Thank you. Thanks. And good night. Amanda, Create Infinity, and Aurora. Thank you. Thanks. Good night. Colin, Kagani, and Emily, thank you, thanks, good night. Amanda, Kim, and Ashley, thanks, good night. Sam, Lori, and David, thank you, thanks, good night. Kelsey, Owen, and Amanda, thanks, good night. Meg, Scott, and Elizabeth, thank you, thanks, good night. Kimberly, Amanda, and Tarun, thanks, good night. Tant, Maddie, and Adam, thank you, thanks, good night. Joseph, Raina, and Sarah, thank you, thanks, good night. Jaime, Helen, and Ivy, thanks, good night. And Natalie and Little Miss, thank you, thanks, good night. To everybody that supports the show, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Sleeping exists a free podcast because people that support the show directly on Patreon support our sponsors, and the podcast grows by people just spreading the word, letting people know in natural conversation when it comes up. And, speaking of spreading the word, here's something I want you to know about. Thanks and good night.